What up, guys? The Bench Buddies are back with our Week 6 NCAA football preview and picks. As always, I got Ty joining me here to break down this week's games. But before we get into it, we got to look at our locks of the week last week. And both of us had the tie in the Louisville game as they lost by 7. And then I got the Rutgers win and the Illinois plus 18 as they only lost by 14. But obviously missed on a few other games, especially that Fresno one, as they did not cover even close to what we thought.
Yeah, absolutely blown out by UNLV. But Michigan, I thought they would cover with ease this week with a low number, and it looked like that in the first half, but obviously barely skated by there at the end. LSU getting the cover. A lot of people had South Alabama after they were beating teams by 100. They weren't even close to covering there. But Illinois, I thought going into that was the lock of the week, and they pulled it off pretty easily with the cover.
Yeah, and then this week we kind of have some similar stuff. Um, Obviously, we both have the Syracuse plus 6.5, Boston College plus 1, and we both have the Missouri plus 2 at Texas A&M. And then difference, I'm going SMU 6.5 at Louisville. Louisville last week didn't really look like they had any control of that game against Notre Dame. They were in it, but really not really, because Notre Dame had, possession and really kind of took over when they had to. And I have the Rutgers, Nebraska under 40.5 points. I think that's going to be a low scoring affair. It always is with Rutgers. They always keep it close and low. And then Arizona 6.5 versus Texas Tech. I think that one slip up game against K-State isn't going to cost them. That big win last week against Utah kind of was the team that I thought Arizona would be. And I think they keep it rolling this week.
Yeah, for me, I might seem like a hater this week, but the Rutgers and Indiana undefeated runs, I just see those coming to an end at some point, and those teams coming back down to earth. So I have Nebraska covering the -7 at home against Rutgers and Northwestern. If you told me 5 weeks ago that they were going to be getting 14 at home against Indiana, that would be the lock of the century. I know things have played out differently than we expected, but I still think they cover that game. And I like South Carolina. Remember, they were a couple maybe missed calls away from beating LSU at home. And Ole Miss is coming off that bad home loss to Kentucky. So I could see them covering that game. And then the three teams on the top, I think, all win outright. So obviously, I'm going to take them to cover when they're getting points.
And then obviously last week you took every single favorite to win, and it obviously worked out pretty well for you, going 10-2. And obviously myself, the bad pick of the week was obviously the Fresno State one. And I guess you could say the Oklahoma State as well. But it what worked pretty promising in your favor last week, as pretty much all the favorites won. And then we'll jump into this week, Friday. So tonight, actually, when you're seeing this video, you get Syracuse and UNLV. And I thought, last week UNLV would just total collapse, but what they did destroyed Fresno State. I mean, I have way more respect for UNLV here, but this is kind of a different opponent. You got Kyle McCord coming into town, played in probably the biggest games, more than any bigger game that these UNLV players have played in. And it's a big game for ACC and Syracuse as well, because it is a non-conference, but this would be a huge non-conference win for Syracuse if they can pull this off, just because how, I don't want to say bad the ACC is, but how inconsistent it is. And obviously they have one ACC loss. So give me Syracuse on the road here, boost their non-conference schedule. The schedule looks a little better for them. And I still think this team has an outside shot at an ACC championship.
Yeah, I think this could tell us a lot about Syracuse, and I still think Kyle McCord is a really solid quarterback, and Syracuse can lean on him in this game. UNLV needs this game for their playoff hopes, I think. A loss doesn't quite knock them out, but it hurts their chances quite a bit. But I think Syracuse going on the road with a much better quarterback than UNLV. Obviously, they lost theirs to that NIL fiasco. So I think Syracuse pulls the upset.
Then moving to Saturday, I'm going with the road dog here. I'm always taking the points and the money line. I'm going with Southern Methodist, and I think this team, they had one bad game this year. They put that behind them. They've responded well, and I think Louisville coming off the loss, they return home. It's a bigger game for SMU than it is Louisville, kind of like that Syracuse and I'm drawing a blank, Syracuse and UNLV game. And I think it's going to be flip-flop this way, where one ACC team is going to lose. And, well, I guess SMU is now in the ACC too. But regardless, SMU is going to win this game. They're going to go on the road, shock some people, and they might be switching that ranking with Louisville next week.
Yeah, I think this will be a very close game. These teams are going to be competing to get into the ACC championship at the end of the year. So I think this will be a big game in determining that. But I think Louisville at home gets a very slight edge in this game. 6.5 feels like kind of a lot for what is almost a coin flip game here. But I think the Cards do pull it out coming off a loss.
And then also a good game in the ACC, Pitt, UNC. I wouldn't be shocked if UNC wins this game after what happened last week, losing to Duke. But I think Pitt's going to go on the road and get a win. And this Pitt team for the last, what, 6, 7 years has been very consistent at going 8-4, 9-3 every year. And I just think the trend continues. At least this week, it's going to go up and they're going to get to 5-0.
Yeah, I agree. I think Pitt, obviously, pretty bad year last year, but outside of that, they've been a very consistent program, and now they're starting to find that again. And I think North Carolina has kind of lost the locker room a little bit at this point. If you get 70 bombed by James Madison, that's pretty telling of where your program's at. So I think Pittsburgh, even on the road, I don't think North Carolina can really stop anybody right now, and I don't think I see that changing this week.
And a shocking line here, like both of us said earlier, Boston College getting one on the road, even with their quarterback coming back this week, and he's expected to start. I'm really surprised. I don't know if Vegas just hasn't updated it yet or caught wind of it, but I wouldn't be shocked by game time Saturday if its spread flips to Boston College's side. So hopefully you can get it while you can. I'm definitely going to take the money line here because I'm sure it's good money to be made. And this defense, for me, the Boston College defense is going to be the reason why they win this game. Not because their quarterback is returning. We saw it. Boston College in the first 5 games has played some great defense under Bill O'Brien. They almost beat Missouri. And if they can almost beat Missouri, who's number 9 in the country right now in the SEC, going on the road against Virginia shouldn't be that too tall of a task.
Yeah, I agree. I think Castellanos makes the difference here, Bill O'Brien. So obviously, Boston College being the better coach team, having the better quarterback, even on the road, I think that's too big of a difference to overcome. Virginia is much improved. Remember, they were maybe the worst Power Five team in the country last year. Now starting 3-1, so big improvement. But I don't think they get it done on Saturday. I think Boston College squeaks it out on the road.
And then probably the best game on at noon. You get Missouri and Texas A&M, and I'm going Missouri on the road here. I know they survived the scare last week, but that's kind of what SEC football is. Surviving those games, you should win, but it is kind of a trap game because I'm sure they were looking forward to this game. It's a big game going in College Station, 12, home of the 12th man, and it's no joke. Texas A&M has looked good ever since their loss to Notre Dame. Missouri, coming off of that squeaker. I still think they're going to find it as long as Brady Cook is out there and Luther Burden. That connection is still probably top 3 in college football right now. As long as those two guys still have a good game plan, I got to roll with Missouri.
Yeah, a big thing for me in this game is the kick time. 11 a.m. local for Texas A&M. I think if this was a night game or even a 3:30 game, it'd be a lot more intimidating of an environment. But I do think Missouri just is the better team right now. I know they struggled with Vanderbilt, but they have a lot of experience. They're very battle tested. So even in this road environment, I think Texas A&M is a year away right now. And this is, kind of a win now year for Missouri. They have everyone coming back, and I think that'll lead them to a road win.
They move into the 3:30 slate. Ole Miss goes on the road for South Carolina. And I do like Ole Miss to win here, but like you said earlier, South Carolina covering, I wouldn't be too shocked if that happens. I think we got to give Kentucky more credit because they are surprisingly going to be a good team in the SEC this year. Obviously lost to Georgia by 1 at home, beat Ole Miss on the road. And I think Ole Miss, if they want to go to the playoff, they got to respond this week, get that win. And let's say they lose this game, I'm out on Ole Miss for the rest of the year, and they'll probably finish 8-4 at best, like they always do. At least they have in the Lane Kiffin era.
Yeah, they have to win this game. I mean, a loss here after that shocking home loss to Kentucky. And, like you said, it could be 8-4. It could be even worse than that with their schedule this year. And I think South Carolina, this is the perfect time to welcome a ranked team. Ole Miss is reeling. South Carolina was right there against LSU and couldn't pull it off. Now they get another chance. But with all that being said, I still think Ole Miss has kind of woke up now after that shocking loss. So I think they'll still be able to pull this out on the road, but I think it'll be closer than 8 points.
And then also a good game at four. Surprisingly enough, you get two Big Ten teams here that I mean, I predicted Nebraska to go 11-1 here. So I kind of am shocked that they lost already, I guess. But Rutgers definitely didn't see them starting the season 4-0. I think they would be all right, but I just think this is where the Rutgers football starts to crumble because it's not September anymore. You've said it in recent years where once it hits October and then even November, this Rutgers program just falls apart. And I think that's going to show first week in October where Nebraska, Dylan Raiola, they're going to beat them. I don't know what the score is going to be. I'd say it's probably going to be lower than a higher scoring game just because these defenses are a little bit better than what we've seen in years past. But give me Nebraska at home.
Yeah, obviously I took Nebraska as one of my locks, so I think they, run away with this game, win it by more than that 7 point spread. I just think their defense is going to overwhelm Rutgers. Not enough talent spreading the field on offense for Rutgers, so I think Dylan Raiola and that Nebraska defense are going to lead them to pulling away in the second half. I think it'll be like a 27-10 type of game, and the Huskers get to 5-1.
Then moving to the nightcap, Tennessee, Arkansas, now being in Tennessee, second favorite team is Tennessee. I got to go with Tennessee here. But if I'm going to be take my bias out of it, I like that Arkansas plus 13.5. I think that's my honorable mention lock of the week this week. Because going on the road, obviously Tennessee is coming off of a bye, so they do get an extra week to prepare for this game. Arkansas, they've known in the SEC in I think since we've been doing this the last 3, 4 years, they've been known to upset a team at home, coming into their place. It's a night game. I mean, this is kind of that dream scenario for Arkansas here to pull off that upset. And everybody's riding high with Tennessee, including myself, as long as Nico Imalava, I think I'm getting better at trying to say it. I don't know. I still can't pronounce it, but as long if the last time we saw him play was his worst game against Oklahoma, and they still found a way to win that game on the road, not to mention. Yeah, this Tennessee team is going to be legit, and I still think they're going to win this game, but I like that spread as well.
Yeah, I just think this Tennessee team feels a little different, even from that Hendon Hooker team. Remember that team went into South Carolina late in the year and just got absolutely destroyed in that game. This year, Tennessee is very talented on defense. That's the big difference. And defense usually travels. So, even if, like you said, if Nico has another struggle of a game, I still think Tennessee can lean on that defense, which is something they haven't been able to do in a long time. So I think no matter what, they're going to find a way to win this game. It could be, 17-7. It could be 45-31, but they can win in a lot of different ways. And I think that'll show on Saturday.
And then obviously the game we're going to be watching as well. Michigan, Washington, and Joel Klatt even picked Washington. He's a big Michigan fan. He backs him. But in this one, I can see why, because Washington has consistency. Yeah, their record doesn't really show how good they are this year, but coming from, losing in the national championship to Michigan actually, and losing, I would say what, your head coach, 22 of 24 starters, either to the NFL or transferred. They're shockingly going to be pretty good this year in the Big Ten, and I don't think people realize that. I wouldn't be shocked if they finish 8-4 in the conference with a big win. And if that big win comes this week, as a Michigan fan, honestly, I'm not going to be really shocked if it happens because, we can't throw the ball. And if you can't throw the ball, you're losing on the road, tough environment well, not at night there because it's 4:30 there, but in that environment, if Michigan gets down early or down even at all, don't be shocked if Washington wins this one.
Yeah, and one more thing on that. I think Washington probably remembers that game from January a little bit. I think that's probably on their minds going into this game. Little revenge. Now they get to welcome Michigan into their home stadium 9 months later. But I'm still rolling with the Wolverines. Not super confident, but I think Michigan's got to rip a couple big runs in this game. Maybe a big pass. But I think the defense is going to have to continue to play lights out for Michigan. The offense is going to have to keep them off the field more than they did in the second half last week. And I think they'll be able to do that. I think Michigan's going to win another very ugly, not super fun to watch football game. and get to 5-1 before they really get into the meat of their schedule.
And I will say, as a Michigan fan, Minnesota did get robbed last week. He was definitely on sides, so I do have to put that on there. I'm not biased towards that. But you want to
Yeah.
talk about a crazy start time on the East Coast? Arizona starting at 11 p.m. And I mean, obviously for me, being in Central Time, it's still 10 p.m. for me. And obviously out there, it's 9. I think it's 9 right now till
I think
November.
so. Yeah.
Um, but regardless, Arizona, I think, like I said earlier, this team has turned a page, and hopefully Fifta and McMillan can just be on the same page for the rest of the year. And if that's the case, good luck slowing them down. They're top three as well, like Brady Cook and Burden. So give me the Wildcats at home, but it is going to be a good game. I can see Texas Tech keeping this one close till the fourth quarter, and I think that's when Arizona pulls away.
Yeah, I'm gonna back the start time first. Fox needs to fix this. The big noon and now the big midnight, I guess. We got to do away with that. But getting into the game, I think Arizona, this is a really big game for them because they're coming off that top 10 win on the road. So if they can come back home, avoid the letdown, win this game, then I think they're really going to find their footing because this is a really talented team here. And like you said, I think Texas Tech is a pretty solid team that can take this deep into the fourth quarter, make it a really close game. But I think Arizona gets the home win and starts to really build some momentum into the back half of their season.
And that's going to be it for our week 6 picks. Come back next week to see how we did on our locks and our picks. And then obviously next week we'll be breaking down some good games. I can't remember if next week is the big week of all the SEC games. Is it?
Yep.
Yep. So next week is a huge week for conference implications and obviously playoff implications as well. And I think it's either after next week or the week after is when they start releasing the college football playoff bracket and what it would be at that moment. So make sure you're subscribed and stay in tune and up to date in all of our picks and everything so you guys know what's up. But until the next time, the Bench Buddies are out.